Hello, 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 and welcome to Walk, Talk, Health. Aging and disease, and many health professionals now believe that aging is just another disease, are primarily caused by two main factors, and that is DNA damage and chronic inflammation. As the channel name suggests, you and I are going to take an amazing walk today in beautiful surroundings, and we're going to discuss a topic that will help with both of those and generally improve your health. Now, if you combine the subjects we talk about over a series of these walks and talks, it really can improve both your health, your longevity, your well-being, and you really can live longer, healthier. So where are we today? We're in Spring Lake, California, near Santa Rosa. I'm going to start this video by asking you a series of questions. Do you find it difficult, almost impossible to lose weight? Do you carry most of your weight around your stomach? Do you have problems sleeping at night, particularly waking up and struggling to get back off to sleep? And do you have energy crashes during the day? If you have one or more or all of these, it's most likely an issue of cortisol, too much cortisol in your body. So today we're going to discuss what is cortisol. What does it do in the body? How can we reduce that cortisol for better health and longevity? So let's get into it, and I hope you enjoy the trail. What is cortisol? It's a hormone produced in the adrenal glands along with adrenaline. In fact, they're both produced at the same time. Adrenaline's actually produced for more instant benefits to the body. Cortisol is longer lasting, as we'll discover. Cortisol production is actually highest in the morning when we first wake up. This is normal, it's part of our wake up and getting the body going in the morning. But if it continues at high levels throughout the day, that's not normal. In fact, it's actually dangerous, as we'll discover. So to address the stomach fat issue right off the bat, it's an interesting fact to know that the fat cells in and around our stomach actually have 2 times the amount of cortisol receptors. They're a part of the cell that is looking to take in cortisol than in any other part of the body. Cortisol can be turned into sugars, glucose, our body's natural sugar, and that in turn gets absorbed by these receptors and then turned into fat. This park, as well as the main lake, which we'll see plenty of as we walk around it, and it's beautiful, also has these little ponds that are, I mean, look at this one, absolutely packed with lilies. So why does the body produce cortisol? Well, it's our fight or flight hormone, along with adrenaline. It's very important if we are in a dangerous situation that we need to get out of. And that's fine, but it's not meant to be something we live with all day long. Let's look at an extreme example to explain why cortisol is so important. Let's imagine you come face to face with a bear or a ferocious dog that is clearly intent on potentially harming you. Your body has to make a decision as to whether it continues to use its energy for your immune system, your repair system, or does it divert everything to fight or flight, fighting the bear, the dog, or running away from it? Well, of course, it chooses the more imminent danger, which is the bear or the dog. What happens as soon as the bear or the dog has gone, or you've got away from it, is cortisol, etc., is supposed to, at that point, disappear, and then your body can return to natural repair and immune systems. But if the cortisol levels don't decrease, and we'll discuss in a minute reasons why that might happen, then the repair and the immune system is suppressed, and that leads to things like heart disease, type 2 diabetes, mental disorders like Alzheimer's, depression, and definitely premature aging. And I think we can agree none of us want that. So what we need to look at now is, why does it happen? How does it cause those issues? Okay, it's that time where I ask you for your help. This channel is in no way monetized. Its sole purpose is to reach as many people as I possibly can to help them on their health journey. So can I ask a big favor? Can you please hit the like, the subscribe and the bell notification if you want to be automatically informed of my next video. But most importantly, can you make a comment? Can you maybe tell me where you're watching from the world? What walks you like to take? Ask a question. And even better still, if you can share this video, it really does help get this out and help as many people as I can. So by helping me, you're helping others, and I thank you in advance. Thank you. When cortisol is produced, it tells the liver to start producing glucose, sugar. That glucose is important for the muscles in terms of giving them the energy they need to run away or to fight. Cortisol, as I mentioned earlier on, can actually be turned into glucose, in which case that can also be used by the muscles as and when needed. But glucose is inflammatory, and as we know, chronic inflammation causes most of the diseases that we face in modern society. So the body, as a result, if the sugars are not being used, the glucose isn't being used, starts to produce insulin to take that glucose out of the blood so it doesn't thicken too much and cause potential for blood clots. Now, insulin, unfortunately, is also inflammatory. So all this inflammation being caused in the body, if it's constant and throughout the day, day after day, from high stress, is going to lead to the various diseases that I've already just mentioned. Cortisol also suppresses the natural production of testosterone and estrogen. These are two other vitally important hormones for our health and general well-being. So I think we can all agree that whilst testosterone is very important, we really need it for those genuine situations of fight or flight, it's not something that we want to maintain at high levels throughout our body during the day. So what can we do about it? Well, we're going to look at 4 natural remedies that can help lower cortisol and have other amazing health benefits. And I'm going to start with probably the most controversial, the one you're most likely to roll your eyes over, and that is a practice of gratitude. But before you switch off, let me explain why and prove to you it works. Studies have shown that people that are in a constant state of stress consume on average 40% more calories, and most of those calories turn out to be glucose, carbohydrate, sugar related, all the things we love but we know releases extra glucose in the body, and that extra glucose triggers insulin spikes, and the insulin we know is inflammatory and leads to some very serious diseases. Studies have shown that the technique we're going to explain in a short while produce 2 very important other hormones in our body, that is oxytocin and dopamine. These are the feel-good hormones and the love hormones. Just think about it. Who do you know has been in love or feeling very happy and stressed at the same time? It just doesn't happen, right? That's because there's a direct inverted correlation between the two hormones. When those feel-good and love chemicals go up, cortisol comes down. So increasing dopamine and oxytocin through this technique clearly will offset and reduce the amount of cortisol in the body. The next thing that the 2 feel-good and love hormones do is they activate the parasympathetic nervous system. So that's the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve runs from our back of our eyes, through the brain, down to the heart, to every organ in our body, including the gut. The vagus nerve tells our organs to digest, rest and repair, all the things that give us good health. In a UC Davis study, they discovered that using this technique that we will cover reduce both blood pressure. Makes sense. If you're feeling happy, etc., you relax, your blood vessels no longer constrict as much, blood flows better, and also reduce blood sugar. Again, if cortisol comes down, that cortisol is not being turned into sugar. It's not telling the liver to produce sugar. So again, it makes sense that they should find that. They also measured A1C. Now, A1C is a blood test that can be carried out that looks at your average 3-month sugar content. It does that by looking at the glycation of the blood cells. In other words, how much of that glucose, the stickiness stuff, has actually started to stick to the outside of your blood cells, restricting the uptake of things like nutrients, oxygen, and all the things that are very important for our bodies. Other studies show that it reduces heart rate and reduces inflammation. And that's a biggie, right? We know that inflammation can cause these major diseases. If I haven't already convinced you to hang around for this technique, let me hit you with another couple of studies. A Harvard study of 42,000 nurses split into 2 groups had one half carry out this gratitude technique and the other half not. They found that those that carried out the technique had a 9% reduction in all-cause mortality, that's deaths from all causes, and a 15% reduction in cardiovascular events. That's pretty amazing, right? Another study you can look up on PubMed by Dr. Martin Picard looked at caregivers. Now, caregivers have an incredibly stressful job looking after their patients or their loved ones. He looked at the health of the mitochondria, and the mitochondria, as we've covered in previous videos, are the powerhouse of every cell in our body. They take ATP and oxygen, they produce energy, which we then use for things like everyday living and repair processes. They found that the group that did this particular technique at night before they went to bed, when they woke up in the morning, those mitochondria were significantly healthier and more mitochondria than in the group that didn't do this particular practice. And finally, Joe Dispenza, look him up, a very renowned and respected doctor in the field of health and medicine, noticed in his studies that when this practice was carried out, 1,200 chemicals were released by the body, all of which had positive effects on health and well-being. So without further ado, what is this technique that's going to raise dopamine and oxytocin and reduce cortisol in the process, make us feel happier and less stressed? Well, it's pretty simple, and it goes like this. In the morning, preferably, you spend 5 minutes, and that's all it takes, to generate these chemicals. You do it by, in 1 minute increments. Trying to do it 5 minutes at a time is almost impossible, I found. Anyway, you pick something you're grateful for. So let's say your partner to start. But you don't just say, I'm grateful for my partner, etc. You concentrate on the emotion, the feeling of that gratitude. Think about them and think just how much you care about them, love them, the gratitude that they're in your life, and you can feel it. It's hard to explain, but when you try it, you'll understand. Then pick another subject for 1 more minute. Say you're grateful that you have a roof over your head and that you can put food in your belly. Again, concentrate on the feeling of gratitude that brings you. So you do 5 1-minute grateful attitudes, and of course this can be repeated as many times as need be throughout the day, depending on just how much of an individual you are in terms of stress levels, or on that particular day. If you have a low stress day, you probably only need to do the once in the morning. If you find yourself getting stressed throughout the day, you can just practice this, and I promise you'll feel the difference, as in when we've got the dopamine and the oxytocin flowing and the cortisol being reduced, you can only feel good, and you're now doing something amazing for your body. Thought we'd just stop here for a second and just take in, wow, the beauty of the lake, right? Look at that. That's awesome. So the second technique we're going to do to reduce cortisol is a simple breathing technique. I've covered this in a previous video in detail. We're simply going to breathe in deeply through the belly first and then through the chest. Once we're full, we kind of concentrate on the oxygen getting up into the brain, which is going to help trigger those feel-good hormones. And then we release out through the mouth. We basically breathe in until we say we have full lungs, and then we breathe out. Constantly doing that reduces blood pressure, proven to do that, but also helps to release these hormones, which in turn reduces the cortisol in our body. Okay, the third technique to reduce cortisol is something called a concentrated walking technique. Now you might feel a little bit odd walking around with your hands in this position. You can see that I've created a half a square. By looking through this gap, what it will do, first of all, you'll notice that everything becomes more three-dimensional. I can see things in the distance more clearly. I can judge more medium-term and close-up objects. So now I'm kind of concentrating and making my brain switch off from all those everyday things that stress us out, and I'm concentrating on what I'm seeing. The next thing I'm doing is I'm actually counting my steps as I go, and I'm also breathing every fourth step and breathing out every fourth step. Now, in effect, what I'm doing is I'm flooding the brain with so many tasks: the visual, the breathing, the concentrating on my steps. There's no way anything else can creep in. All the things that keep us stressed and keep those cortisol levels high are now pushed out by this activity. If you're uncomfortable with the idea of walking around with your hands up in that position in terms of people looking at you, personally, when I do it, I just say to myself, this is for my health and well-being. I don't care what people think. The alternative would be to walk along. It's a qigong equivalent, where they teach you to walk along looking at your feet, paying particular attention to how the feet are moving, the pace that they're moving, whilst at the same time counting your steps and doing the breathing. So that's an alternative if you don't want to do the one I just described. Finally, the one that probably acts the quickest is one involving muscle relaxation. This is known as progressive muscle relaxation. What you simply do is lay somewhere quiet, in a dark room if that helps you relax more, and you slowly start to tense and release the muscles from the toes all the way up to your head. So starting with your toes, tense them, hold for 3 to 5 seconds, release. But as you release, just feel how good it is to feel that relaxation after you've done that tensing. Some beautiful fallen trees. Such a shame when they fall down, but they do look amazing. The moss is very happy on these. So then you move on to the legs, and you tense and you hold the legs muscles as hard as you can. Again, 3 to 5 seconds. When you release, again, concentrate on how good it feels when those muscles are released. Then you move up to the stomach, the arms, the hands. You get the idea. Start at the bottom, work your way to the top, but each time concentrate on the relaxation feeling, how good it feels when you release those muscles. And cortisol levels will come down really, really quick if you use that technique. Let's do the recap. So firstly, the body produces adrenaline and cortisol when we're in a situation of stress. The adrenaline gets produced immediately and is short-lived and really pumps everything up. The cortisol is longer lasting, and we know that cortisol leads to increased risks of heart disease, type 2 diabetes, Alzheimer's, depression, accelerates our aging, and these are all things that we want to avoid. We know that 4 simple techniques such as gratitude, taking something you're grateful for, feeling that emotion, can actually help produce oxytocin and dopamine in the brain, which completely counteracts cortisol, forcing it down. We know you can do a simple breathing technique that will physically relax the body, reduce blood pressure, and again will reduce cortisol levels. We know that you can do focused walking, where you either bring your hands up and look through and you get that 3D effect. You count your breaths, you count your steps, or if that's too embarrassing, you look down at your feet while you're walking and you make a conscious effort to observe their movement whilst you're counting your steps and you're counting your breathing, to flood the brain with lots of information so that it doesn't have room for any of those niggling daytime stresses that are keeping your cortisol level up. Finally, there is that contraction and release of the muscles from toe to head. And in the process of that, you must concentrate on the relaxation part, how good the body feels every time you release those muscles, working your way up the body. That one acts really quick. Any one of these four can be used throughout the day, as I mentioned earlier in the video. If you're having a pretty light day, you're feeling pretty good, you may only need to do one of these first thing in the morning. If you're having a particularly stressful day, you can turn to any one of these four to help reduce cortisol and stave off all those terrible diseases we just mentioned. Anyway, thank you for listening, thank you for watching, hope you can support the channel, and see you next time, where we are going to discuss spermidine. I promised that last time, but I've spoken to a number of people over the last few weeks that have talked about their conditions such as stomach, not the inability to lose weight. We've had the conversation about cortisol, and I felt this was more important and pressing to get out in the public. But spermidine, definitely next time. See you then. Thanks, bye. I hope you've enjoyed this week's walk and talk. I certainly have. Leave me with a positive. If you can get your cortisol levels down using any one of those four techniques, or all four of them, or any combination of them, you'll notice that things like belly fat, the ability to lose weight will start to happen. You can then introduce intermittent fasting, and I created another video on intermittent fasting and its benefits, which you can check out right here.